Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Cyber Foundation Fridays. Hopefully, you are having a good day. Hopefully, you enjoyed last week's session and are going to continue to attend these sessions going forward. Uh, as we discussed last week, today we are going to cover. Let me move myself here. The NIST risk management framework. So the NIST is the National Institute for Sciences and Technologies. It is a federal organization within the United States, but as many of you outside the United States may know, it has become somewhat of a de facto standard as well, along with ISO globally, mainly because you can go to nist.gov and gain access to any of their documents. They leave them out there for free, and you can go get those documents, download those at no charge. So, what are we going to talk about today? And just to feel free to put any questions or comments in the chat. I should, if whether you're viewing this on LinkedIn Live or on the Captain Hyperscaler YouTube channel, you should be able to post a comment that I will see and I will be able to respond to. So feel free to do that as well. For those of you that did not attend last week's session or did not know me, I am Dwayne Natwick. I am the owner and CEO of Captain Hyperscaler, as well as a trainer within Captain Hyperscaler. I do a lot of cybersecurity training. I am accredited through APMG to do ASACA training. I teach ISC2 courses. I also teach accolade courses, which a lot of this is built around some of these courses, and this training is to get you interested in the accolade training that we have coming up in October and November. So feel free to reach out to me, connect with me on LinkedIn, on X, or send me an email. The information is there for you to use, and continue to if you follow the Captain Hyperscaler LinkedIn or YouTube channel, you will know about these live events as well. So set up the notifications. We did last week the NIST cybersecurity framework core, and this week obviously we're doing the risk management framework from NIST. Next week we are going to jump into AI security. Which is very topical because on October 1st, Accolade is releasing the beta exam for their AI security foundational course, which I'll be teaching in October as well. Again, and we're going kind of each one of these core topic areas are going to be resurfacing every 3 weeks. So we did cyber resilience last week. We're doing risk management this week. We're doing AI security next week. Then we'll go back to cyber resilience. And as I stated, we do have a number of training courses coming up at Captain Hyperscaler, starting with risk management foundations on October 8th through 10th. Actually, just finished that building that courseware this morning, and then AI security foundations October 15th through 17th. And then we're doing the risk management practitioner course November 6th through 7th. And then cyber resilience courses as well. So the risk management foundations and practitioner courses are currently in beta for the certification. The beta for risk management ends on October 15th. So you have time to get into that risk management course with me and prepare yourself to take that exam on before the 15th. And the AI security foundations, as I said, the beta exam launches on Monday, and I believe you have till November 30th to take that exam. The risk management practitioner is currently in beta as well, and you have till November 15th to take that exam. So therefore, I'm offering it before the 15th so that you can prepare for that exam as well. Offering special pricing on these courses. So again, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I also will give you I believe there's a QR code at the end of this session that you can use as well to get, or just go to the Captain Hyperscaler website, and they are the featured courses as soon as you go to the main web page, and you can pay right there and register for the courses, and I will send you a Teams link for the courses. All of these courses will be recorded, and anybody that paid will be provided with the recordings of the course. But it is a live virtual event. We're doing it over the 3 days, or like the practitioner courses over 2 days, and they're 3-hour sessions. So 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern time. So that works out well for afternoons if you're in EMEA, and it doesn't get, unfortunately for like Pacific time, it's a little bit early in the morning. Hopefully you're a morning person, and APAC, it still it's later in the night for you, but still not the middle of the night. Most of you, it's more like 8 p.m. I know, like if it's like Australia or uh, New Zealand or Asia, it's somewhere around the 8 p.m. 11 p.m. time frame. So still still later in night, but not in the middle of the night, hopefully for anybody. So that's why I did it this way, to kind of hopefully be inclusive to all of the time zones, without being like 1 a.m., 4 a.m. Unfortunately, Pacific time, it is 5 a.m. Feel free to join, if you want to. Like I said, they're being recorded, 8 to 11. If you're more like a 6 a.m. person, catch the last couple hours, and you can listen to the recording for the first hour of the day, whichever. I'm up at 5:30 in the morning, so it doesn't really hurt me too much in either way, but definitely know the grind to it. But it's just 3 days. Hopefully you can maybe make it happen. All right, so let's get into today's topic, the NIST risk management framework. So we're going to go through at a high level the risk management framework. This is, if you've ever taken the IC2 CGRC course, or the ASACA C risk course, or like I said, the Accolade, now the Risk Management Foundations course. The risk management framework is a big part of that. And there's a lot of alignment with the NIST risk management framework with other frameworks and guidelines within NIST as well. One of those being the cybersecurity framework that we talked about last week, and in building a cyber resilient organization. Everything in cybersecurity has something to do with risk. And we'll start with really what is risk at a high level. And the risk, what a risk is to an organization, and it's not just digital, it's not just it's not, it has to do with physical and everything like that. And it's the potential loss, damage, or harm resulting from a threat being exploited, a threat that's exploiting vulnerabilities. And it says here, digital systems or assets. So if you think about obviously digital systems, and we think about things like ransomware and all of those types of threats, yes, those are there. But if you think about other risks to your assets, and those of you that are joining from the United States or North America, may know that there's a Hurricane Helene right now going through Florida, and even before it hit landfall, there were pictures of it flooding the streets, and so things around those are threats, and depending on your resilience that you've built within your organization, that's exploiting a vulnerability, a vulnerability that you may have to large amounts of water. Or one of the things that was talked about this particular hurricane is just the sheer force of the winds. My wife was reading something to me last night. I don't know kilometers per hour. Sorry for my metric friends, but we talk miles per hour in the United States. And they're saying that some of the winds are peaking at like 130, 140 miles per hour. And they said this is about like going down a highway with your head out the window for like 8 hours straight or something like that. It was some outrageous analogy. But those are things as organizations that we need to think about in terms of risk. If we're in an area where we are going to have hurricanes, or we're going to have tornadoes, or we're going to have severe swings in weather, those are areas that are areas of concern to us, that we need to address in terms of our risks and what the loss, damage, or harm that's going to result to that. What is and we'll talk a little bit about this here today, but definitely talk about it's something we talk about in the risk management foundations course, is the impact and likelihood of that risk happening. What is the likelihood where we live of a category 4 hurricane taking place? If you're in Florida, that's pretty high. If you're where I am in Michigan, not so much. Now we have risks here of severe weather, colds, storms that might knock down power, tornado, get an occasional tornado here as well. But something, in terms of a hurricanes generally don't come to the Great Lakes region. But those are all things that we need to think about, and things we need to think about in terms of our vulnerabilities to our physical assets as well as our digital assets, and they're all really pretty tightly aligned anyway. So what do we mean by the term of risk management? So we have our risks, we identify our risks. Risk management is that systematic process of identifying, assessing, prioritizing, and then determining how we are going to treat those risks, whether mitigating those risks across our assets. And we and the key pieces that we look at here are to ensure those security objectives of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. I'm giving the example quite a bit just because it's topical of the hurricane going through Florida right now in the southern United States. That is the biggest risk that has is the risk to availability. Because the availability aspect is very, and having availability systems. The power goes down, or if our data center floods and things of that nature, are going to creep into the potential availability of our assets. So this is a summarization of the risk management framework and really the steps that go into the risk management framework. And the information that I'm sharing here is actually information that I used when I was preparing for the ISC2 CGRC exam. So this is based on the risk management framework of 800-37 revision 2. The reason I mentioned revision 2 is, and if you think about the core cybersecurity framework that we spoke about last week, if you attended that, and we talked about how there was identify, define, or identify, detect, protect, respond, and recover, those 5 steps previously in the cybersecurity framework, and then they added govern in from version 1 and 1.1 to version 2 back in February. Similar to version 2 of the 800-37, they had categorize, select, implement, assess, authorize, and monitor as the 6 steps of the risk management framework, and they added prepare with R2. And I can't stress this enough, that preparing is a very key aspect to every project and every framework, every policy and procedure that we that we want to put in place should have a level of diligence in the preparation of that. And one of the things that I've seen a lot in terms of revised versions of a lot of frameworks and a lot of guidelines is putting more into that upfront prepare aspect of things. Govern kind of does that as well within the cyber security framework, because there's parts of governance within that is not just the ongoing monitoring and updating, but it's the actual preparation, putting the policies in place. The organizational context really sets forth the culture of the organization, and that's what the prepare step does here as well. Um, and it touches every other phase, just like govern does in the cybersecurity framework. Um, and as we kind of move through each step, there's particular tasks that we need to address and need to come across, and we'll talk about each of those here shortly as we go through today. But we're not going to go in super detail, because if you look, very similarly to the categories and subcategories of the cybersecurity framework, where we had 106 subcategories, there are a lot of tasks as you implement the system. And this is really the risk management framework is meant to align. It aligns a lot with the cybersecurity framework and building a resilient, risk-aware organization, as we mentioned last week. But what it really aligns with the closest is the software development lifecycle, because what you're doing in here is you're bringing systems online to support an application. And so what you're preparing for is what that risk is. And when you move into like the categorize phase, we're identifying what data is going to be on that system. And then from there, we select the controls, we implement, we assess, then as we assess, now we get to the authorize phase, where we authorize it for operation, and then we get into the continuous monitoring aspect of it all. So those are the things that we think about and the things that we work through as part of all of as part of all of the as part of the risk management framework. And we're going to go through each one of these here in a moment and kind of get through talking about, so you understand the risk management framework. Now, if you're interested in the Accolade risk management certified risk management foundations certification, the risk management framework is only one part of this course. I'm going to go in actually in probably greater detail right now around the risk management framework than really I would do in the course, because there's other topics that I need to get to. But today we're talking about 800-37 specifically. So we'll go a little bit deeper and wider into it, which will just make you, if you take the risk management foundations course with me, just that much more ready for it. So this is kind of like a list of roles, and sorry that for some reason the slides title didn't come through here, but these roles are a group of roles that we kind of use throughout all of this risk management framework, as you can see here. And each role has some different level of accountability within the risk management framework. Key documents, again, we're not going to go through a lot of the key documents, but there are key documents, and a key thing is the input and the output of these documents in terms of the task, like business impact analysis. We have, a business owner that is the creator of this particular document, and it is an input to a couple of tasks. And what you'll see is these denominators here of you can see P14, P8, you can see P3, P14, A5, A6. Each of the very similarly to the designation that we had for specific functions, and tasks, or functions and categories with the cybersecurity framework. Similarly, we have that here in the risk management framework, where if we're a P, we're in the prepare task number 3. If we're in A5, we're in the assess task 5 and task 6 here for the risk assessment results as input tasks. You can see we create it at prepare stage 3 at the organizational level, and then it's used in various other stages, various other tasks. So so as I said, there's a lot of overlap in terms of other NIST guidelines and frameworks within the um, within our NIST risk management framework. No different than what I mentioned with the cybersecurity framework. You know, there is some overlap. There's some integration, but these are some good. These are some ones to kind of understand. One of the key tasks or key phases of the risk management framework is categorizing what you have. You know, knowing what you have in terms of your assets and understanding where they are in terms of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. The FIPS 199 and FIPS 200 help for those categorizations and those minimum requirements for security standards. So those are very important. Down at the bottom, 800-137 sets up the continuous monitoring life cycle. The 800-30 risk assessment guide is very helpful. 800-18 security plan guide. You need to develop a security plan. Those are all things. And then the software development lifecycle for new systems and existing systems track through all of the phases. Again, generally the risk management framework and having this framework in place is following along as part of a secure development lifecycle. So if you're practicing secure app development, this risk management framework can be help assist in that process. And as you build that application, if you're building these phases, working in these steps and these tasks, you will have a secure system with secure applications and secure data in place. I don't know why my headers didn't show up, but again, these are just some more some other guidelines and information here for other NIST documents. Again, you can see the NIST cybersecurity framework is listed here. We've got some things around risk management strategy, 800-39, the farm approach, frame, assess, respond, and monitor, I believe are the 4 farm. I think I actually have a diagram on that one here in this presentation. So we'll confirm that here shortly, if I'm correct through my memory. So let's look at the different phases here and go a little bit deeper into each one of these. Let's talk about the prepare phase first, and we'll talk about the prepare phase. There are 2 stages of the prepare phase. If we come back to our diagram here, you can see there are 18 tasks, and task 1 through 7 are framed in the organizational aspect, and 8 through 18 are system level. So we're going to talk first about the organizational level, which really sets up really well with the NIST cybersecurity framework and like the organizational context and the risk management strategy and risk roles and things like that. Those are all things that we set in those tasks and subtasks within the cybersecurity framework. They're also referenced here in the organizational level prepare phase. So what does that look like? Here are the organizational level tasks. As stated, we've got risk management roles. We've got risk management strategy, organizational risk assessment, the tailored control baseline, and cybersecurity profiles. Again, these are optional. if you remember, cybersecurity profiles were something that was mentioned, I think, briefly, at least in the core aspects of risk management last week. I didn't go into detail because I'll actually be talking about the implementation tiers and profiles in a later Foundational Friday. Common control identification, impact level prioritization, another optional task, and then continuous monitoring strategy for the organization. So 7 tasks. Key thing that we're looking at is the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of our systems. So these are all part of and all integrated in everything that we are looking at and addressing as we are evaluating our assets and evaluating risks to our assets. So first off is prepare, and key things that we need to understand, and really what we're going to cover here really today is each of these tasks and what the input and the output is that you're going to need to look at and understand to of what you need to gather, to execute that particular task and what comes out of that task. Okay, so the key input here in the risk management role task is what are the organizational security and privacy policies and procedures, and really the organizational charts, because we need to know those roles. And if we think about the cybersecurity framework, that's addressed a lot in terms of the organizational context within the govern function as well. So again, a lot of alignment there. The output then is going to have a documented role assignments, and within this particular role, you're going to have our chief information officer, our chief privacy officer generally. Remember, this is a United States federal government document, so it talks about agencies a lot. But if we think about like our head of agency, it's going to be like our board leader or our CEO, and again, senior agency for privacy, probably our CPO might be involved here. And so again, related tasks here is 800-37, which if you go back and look at 800-37, that is our RMF. Okay. And so that's the key document here, as well as our software, our system development lifecycle, or software development lifecycle, however you read that acronym. The initial, the SDLC is something throughout, and really this is the risk management framework is really an overlay to that life cycle. We're going to follow that through as we go through. Prepare P2, the second task within the prepare phase, is the risk management strategy. Again, so the mission statement of the organization, the policies, risk assumptions, constraints, priorities, trade-offs, all of that's going to be in our risk management strategy. The head of agency, or really the executives, CEO, are all going to be involved in this. We can use the 800-39, or that FARM process, for guidance in terms of building a security risk program. And again, the software development lifecycle is going to be in there as well. And here's that 800-39 process, as I said. I think I had those right. So assess, respond, monitor, and frame is in there as kind of that preparation. What are our risk assumptions? What are our constraints? What's our tolerance? What are our priorities? Those are all key aspects to building and framing what risk is to our organization. And that's really what is our organization's culture towards risk. And that's really, in terms of our risk management strategy, what we need to come out of this particular task with. So we need to understand that key aspect. We need to assess our threats and vulnerabilities. We need to have a process for responding and monitoring, and go from there. That's really what we're doing here. It's important to note that there needs to be a level of transparency throughout the organization of risk awareness. So So like I was talking about with cybersecurity framework and using that and implementing that within your organization. Everybody is a contributor to the culture within the organization as it pertains to risk, to compliance, to governance, to cybersecurity, to cyber resilience, all of those things. So there's a key, there's an aspect of and a need to make sure that we are communicating properly what our mission and business is within the organization. They need to communicate that down to everybody, and going back up they need we need from an information systems perspective, a security perspective, a user perspective, also understand that mission and business and take that into account ourselves when we're handling risk. And it's a constant feedback loop accordingly. And so the risk management strategy then should take that mission and business process, feed that down into the architecture of the business and the privacy, the not just the enterprise architecture, but the security and privacy architecture that then determines the information systems that we're going to put in place, what controls we're going to have in place, and for the system itself, as well as the environment of operation. We'll talk a little bit more when we get about the environment of operation here coming up. P3, again, this is the organization's risk assessment. So now the organization is determining our level of risk. And there's a document in NIST 800-30 that references how to conduct a risk assessment. And again, we can do qualitative, we can do quantitative, we can do a hybrid approach as well. We can do and we have different approaches within the type of approach in terms of analysis, using threat oriented, asset or impact oriented, or vulnerability oriented. So we're building a risk strategy. We're understanding what our operations are, what the particular threat is to the organization from doing the risk assessment. From there, now we can start looking at control baselines and where we want to be in terms of controls based on the business objectives. Again, the architectures are in place as well as those risk assessment results. And a key thing here, if you notice the risk assessment results, is we haven't talked about system level tasks of prepare, but here we're mentioning risk assessment results of organization and the system. So these aren't linear tasks necessarily, with the exception probably of P1 and P2. We really need to have those in place really before we do anything else, because we need to know who's going to be involved, what roles and what people are going to be involved, and as well as what the risk management strategy is, what's the risk tolerance, what is our risk appetite, and things like that are very key to everything else that we do in terms of a risk assessment, tailoring baseline controls and things like that. But the organization has some level of input here in terms of, based on our risk assessment, how do we, are we going to use, tailored control baselines? Are going to use various common controls that are available, things of that nature are all parts of the P4 task. P5 task, common control identification. Again, if we're not going to use a tailored baseline, then we're probably going to use more like common controls. We're going to use what Palo Alto has available, or Microsoft has available, or AWS has available. Those are things that we're going to think about there. Again, I'm going to roll through these because there's a lot of them. Impact level prioritization. Again, we'll do more categorization in the next phase of that's categorization, but we can do some impact level categorization here as well. Again, it's optional in terms of prepare. You'll see this organizational continuous monitoring strategy. What do we need to monitor? What is the strategy for continuously monitoring and maintaining our systems? That's a key approach as well. So system level. So we've gone through and we've moved into system level from organizational level. And a key aspect to this is there's a bridge piece here. And if we go back to to the diagram triangle here, you can see tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Within prepare, we've got those P1 through P7 that's organizational. So that's like our tier. So that fits into tier 1. We've got tier 3, we've got system level prepare steps as well. But mission and business slides into this P8 right in between. And then we can get into everything else. So it falls in the system because mainly because we're handing everything we did in the previous 7 steps, 7 tasks to the system owner here. And we're building, we're taking all that mission statement, we're taking all those documents and everything that we've prepared in terms of strategy and assessments and things like that, and we're driving that down into our system tasks. And you can see we've got 11 tasks in here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, because we got to count. It's not. It would have to be P9 to be 10. P8's like starting at 0. But again, the mission and business owner has the role in that mission and business focus of task 8. And then it starts to hand that then off to the system owner. You can see system stakeholders. So we've got the organizational stakeholders in the second step of prepare for the organizational level. Same thing here. We've got to know stakeholders and roles, things of that nature. We need to identify what our assets are. So this is a very key to any kind of risk is we can't protect what we don't know. And so those are key things that we need to take into account. Now you can notice here, once we went into system level tasks, we've now moved into the software development lifecycle initiation phase. There's not really any part of the software development lifecycle that falls into the organizational level. We're talking system development. So we hit the systems here in the at P8 when we get into system level tasks. So we're in initiation. We need to know tangible and intangible assets. So human, equipment, hardware, and we got firmware, software that's the intangible. So we need to identify that. We need to understand what the authorization boundary is. So part of this framework is authorization of a system that it's secure enough to go into operations without having any security holes. So the authorizing official or person within the organization that's going to do that authorization has the primary role here in terms of what the network diagrams are. How is that system? What's the not just the system that's being architected, but the environment of operation that it touches is a very key aspect of things. And you can see here, we've got enabling systems, we've got other systems that are touching our authorization boundary, but the key is those system elements. So which and within that triangle, within that authorization boundary is also part of the environment of operation as well. But then we have other systems that are going to pull against it. We don't ever necessarily have a system going online within our organization that is completely isolated. We may do that, which would be a good thing, but it's costly if we do that, because we want to. There are inherent controls within these enabling systems that we might be able to use as well. Moving to information types now. So the next two are going to be very important when we get into categorizing our data. We need to understand what our types are, and then what the data flow is, and what information is passing through our systems. So P12 and P13 are very tightly related because we want to understand the data life cycle here as well. So some interesting things around the data life cycle. A little bit different here in the risk management framework than some other data life cycles you've seen, where we've got create, process, disseminate, use, store, and dispose. So a lot of times, like we've got if you look at like Microsoft's look into the data lifecycle, or even the I think in the cybersecurity framework is a little bit different too. We've got create, store, share, uh, create, store, use, share, archive, and dispose. So this one's a little bit different because you got share. I think use is before share in the other one, and you've got process instead of store. So a little bit different definitions there, but still kind of pretty similar. Like the storage, rather than archive is there. Obviously, disposition is very important. The system risk assessment. So we talked about the organizational risk assessment. Now we've got the system risk assessment. It's going to do a little bit more of the criticality analysis of that system. Again, looking at it against the business and mission. You can see the cybersecurity framework profiles are going to fall in here, because doing that risk assessment, we can use the profiles of that that we've done within our cybersecurity framework and our cyber to build cyber resilience. So requirements definition. Now, what are the requirements of the system? Again, we got a lot of inputs here in terms of the data mapping that we did in P13, P12, P13. Got the life cycle of personal identifiable information. Regulations. Do we have directives, regulations like GDPR or anything like that? Those are all going to go into the requirements definition. Then that's going to feed into our enterprise architecture. Everything we've done thus far really is going to fall into that enterprise architecture, get our documentation in order. Again, we're still in the initiation phase of the SDLC, and we will be for a little while. Enterprise architecture. Now we got requirements allocation. What are the requirements that we have? And then finally, the last aspect here is system registration. So this goes along with, once we've got everything documented, we've got everything inventoried, essentially. Now we create a system registration. So, just really if we're looking at using a database for all of our systems, that's where this would be. We register it into the database so that it is accounted for and registered within all of the rest of the governing organization, so that we can track then the progress and the process of getting this authorized for operation. Categorize is the next step. So we've exited out and moved through prepare. Like I said, we don't necessarily exit out of prepare, because prepare can be revisited, or we may use certain steps within prepare to work within the phases of the other tasks. But categorize is a very important, not that any of them are unimportant, but we've got a lot of parts within here. And first part is the system description. What is the system? What's that authorization boundary again? And so we're going to document the description of the system. What is the business use of this system? And we did a little bit of that already at P8, which is the mission and business. We've defined what that is there. We've also defined the system requirements and the assessments and things like that. So they're all system related tasks that go into the documented system description. And we can follow some of the categorization here within FIPS 199 and FIPS 1253, which we'll talk about here really in the next stage here. So once we know have the system described, have the system description, now we got to categorize the system. And that categorization has a lot to do, and everything to do really, with the digital assets that you have on that system and the requirements for confidentiality, integrity, and availability of those digital assets. Okay. So here we've got FIPS 200, which is the high watermark. We've got FIPS 199, which gives us categorization based on systems. The CNSSI 1253, and I got that wrong up at the top, is on military grade type systems. So in many of your lives, you're not going to necessarily have be dealing with or working with that level of categorization, but you might. One of the interesting things around categorization is you rate everything in a high, moderate, or low impact based on the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So you identify an asset, you look at, whether it's confidentiality, you look at confidentiality, you look at integrity, you look at availability, and you give it a low, moderate, or high grade. And then you average that out when you're using the FIPS high watermark, or if you're using the CNSSI, you actually go each category on its own. So, what you and the difference between those is that you can address controls in the CNSSIs to a specific high impact situation. That's really what it comes down to. When you're categorizing and you're looking at these documents, because again, documents created by the federal government, excuse me, and like any government, we have to worry about being in military situations and things like that. And one of the things around those military types of situations is loss of life. And so when you look at low, moderate, and high, they look at low, which is very, no impact really to the organization, is really low. Moderate, we're looking at it in terms of in terms of a potentially severe type of impact. High is really a catastrophic event. So if you're categorizing a system, it's important to define really what that low, moderate, and high has to do for you, and what way it relates to you versus how it relates to the federal government in a lot of cases. Again, and then finally, after you've, and here's really, not severe. Severe is high. I was looking for the other S word. Serious effect is moderate. Again, high is we can't recover from this. So most cases we're going to do moderate level in a lot of cases because it's going to maybe do significant damage to our financials. If we can recover from it, though, it's really only moderate. High means it's devastating. Oops. Sorry. Again, process model of looking at that impact level, and analyzing. 800-60 is a good document for that. Again, here's the FIPS level, low, moderate, and high. Looks at confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And then based on where they're at. So if we FIPS 190, FIPS 200 uses the high watermark. And the high watermark says, okay, if I'm at a moderate with confidentiality, a low for integrity, low for availability, we're going to register at a moderate level. Okay. So again, 17 categories in FIPS 200. The review and approval, again, what are the impact levels, and getting approval then for the category, for the information. Again, our authorizing official is involved here, as well as if there is PII, the official for privacy is involved as well. Select. There are six. You can see there's different numbers of tasks for each of these as well. So we've got 6 here in select. Here we're selecting our actual controls. We're building what comes out of this select process. This select phase is our security and privacy plans for what controls we're going to do, how we're going to handle risk. So there's a lot of documents that we can reference here as well. Some of you may be familiar with the common criteria. We've got the high watermarks and the federal system information as well. Got obviously the guide of 37, 800-53. We've got privacy control, control criteria and things like that in there. And so S1 is actually selecting our controls. Now that we've got everything categorized in the categorize step, now we've moved into the control selection, and we can select those controls based on common controls as well as tailored controls. You can see the CCP here, a common control provider, as a primary role here, as well as the system owner, SO. It's really the system owner that's a primary role here, but because the common control provider like Palo Alto or Microsoft, they're going to provide documentation that's going to help us with that into the documentation and control selection. Control tailoring, you might have some different needs in here. We might find that certain controls don't meet the needs, so we've got to put different compensating controls in place. The control allocation. Now, what controls are going to be used for what systems, or what parts of the systems, what components, system elements and things like that. Again, system-specific controls, hybrid controls, as well as common controls that are applied by the common control provider. Windows operating system has certain security controls, like Windows Defender, that is installed as part of the operating system. That's a common control. Planned control implementation, again, categorization, risk assessment results, risk management strategy all feed into this. And here we're documenting, we're creating our security and privacy plans. This is, these are the documents that we're going to use to implement controls within our various systems and environment of operation. So, what do we need in terms of a firewall or encryption, or this is really a plan. This is really a playbook for and procedural document that we're going to use. You note in terms of the SDLC, we have moved and kind of jockeyed around actually a little bit. So in S1, we're in development and acquisition. Still with S2, we're development and acquisition. Allocation still falls into initiation a little bit. So we say initiation here. Development and acquisition in S5. It's a continuous monitoring strategy. So once we have our implementation plan, how are we going to monitor and maintain and update those controls? That's why we need the S5 task of continuous monitoring strategy. One of the reasons control allocation is here is we kind of go back to some of the parts of prepare in control allocation. So it's kind of goes within the system requirements and things like that. So we back up to the system level, system requirements in terms of control allocation. So that's why we jumped out of, we went into development acquisition in S1, jumped out of it in S3, but jumped back in. Okay. So continuous monitoring. Then the plan and review, the continuous monitoring aspect, we have the 800-137, and I had a trainer teach me this mnemonic device of don't eat iguanas at Red Robin. And if you're in the United States, you probably know Red Robin is a restaurant chain known for their burgers, not their iguanas. Doesn't play really well internationally, but it gets a laugh in training classes. But yeah, don't eat iguanas at Red Robin. Define, establish, implement, analyze, report, respond, review. And all ties into continuous monitoring in that task. Finally, the plan, review, and approval. Most tasks have a review and approval aspect coming out of it, and the authorizing official is usually the one that's that signs off on that as a part of approval. Implement only has 2 tasks, but they're obviously very important because we're actually implementing and we're putting these controls in place. So again, we've got 800-37, the RMF, as well as the contingency planning guide goes in here too. We want to implement and have a resilient organization, as we talked about last week. This is, the 800-34 can help give guidance to business continuity plans, continuity of operations, disaster recovery, those types of things. Again, 800-128, this is configuration management and focusing on security. There's a SecCM part of that and stages of that. Task one is control implementation. And so this is actually taking the enterprise architecture, taking the select the security and privacy plans and implementing our controls, whether those are common controls or whether they are system specific custom controls. We're implementing them here. This is, so we're putting them in place. We may have some compensating or supplemental controls that we need to put in place if we find that a control is not doing what it needs to do. So we do that here. And then in I2, we actually will update. So if there's compensating or supplementary controls, we're going to document that here. We're going to understand what the control benchmarks are. We may look at and choose specific compensating controls based on the cryptographic frameworks that FIPS 140-2 have, as well as 800-160, which is our security design principles. Again, we're still in development and acquisition because we're acquiring now controls and putting them in place. So again, updating this document and making sure that it is really an as-built document at this point that's going to be used for the assessment. Okay, so the next step, we're going in to assess. 6 steps in here. Again, we've got 800-55 and 155 that provide some guidance in terms of performance measurements and testing and assessment techniques. First off, we need to select an assessor. And just like any assessment or audit, it should be potentially somebody that's not within the actual group that implemented the controls or designed the controls. Key thing, when I was studying for the CISA exam for OSACA, which is the auditor exam, that was a key aspect, was conflict of interest. So selecting that assessor, somebody that wasn't involved in the design, wasn't involved in the implementation of controls, really should be outside of the team, so that there isn't a personal relationship and things like that as well, are all things that we want to consider here. From there, then you can do the plan. You can build your plan for assessments. And so the assessor works with the authorizing official in terms of what that's going to look like. What's the scope going to be? What is the environment of operation I'm evaluating? What methods are we going to use? So we got TIE here, TIE, which is test, interview, and examine. So we talked about, we'll talk about things around in the cyber resilient practitioner course. We talk about, and we will use things in terms of interviewing people and examining documents in the cyber security, in the cyber resilience, the cybersecurity framework. These 3 methods are very valid to that. So we go through those assessment procedures. We can do then the assessment. The assessment really is, again, still in development and acquisition. The control assessor goes through, looks at the plans, looks at those as built from the implementation, and then they look beyond that, and then they assess whether that, the verification and the validation. So 2 processes. 800-160 talks about verification and validation. Verification, was it built right? Validation, did we build the right thing? Is it doing what it's scoped out to do? Okay. Asset reports, then we build a report, share that report. What we might have is we may have some things that, go into the next task. So this isn't an audit, and a lot of times the assessor is an internal assessor. They may give us a chance to do some remediation actions on this system. This is going to be quick and easy type stuff, not anything that's going to take months and months. That is what the plan of action and milestones are for, is actually creating essentially a project plan for any of those controls that weren't verified and validated appropriately. Okay. And must include in a plan of action and milestones the weakness, the point of contact, what might be required to correct, so recommendations, what the scheduled completion date is, what if we have milestones for those completion dates, and what the status is in the plan of action and milestones. It's essentially a project plan, project scope. Once we've gone through the assessment, now we're ready to get the system authorized. Okay, so we've gone through system, building the system. Now we're ready. We think we're ready to bring this system online, bring it into production. So again, as we're going through a secure application and system development lifecycle, that's where we are. Okay, we're ready to bring this online. The application developers are ready to bring this online. Are we comfortable with bringing it online from a risk perspective? And so we have, the 800-37 again. We have 800-39, which is the frame, and we've got this managing information as a strategic resource, the circular A-130, which is OMB is I believe the Offices of Management and Budget within the United States federal government. So the authorization package, first thing we need to do, the system owner is putting this together with the authorization owner. It's our security and privacy plans after updates and after any changes from the the remediation actions from the assessment. Those assessment reports, the plan of action and milestones, and any supporting assessment evidence or documentation. So, anything that was collected in terms of the interviews or the examinations, policies and procedures are all going to go into this package. And then all of those inputs, along with an executive summary, are what the authorization owner is going to review. So then they do a risk analysis. So they look through every one of those controls and how they were assessed, how they align with our risks and what our risk treatment was addressed. And we look at and we analyze those risks accordingly and look to evaluate appropriately. And we make a risk determination. Are these within our risk tolerance levels? Is the key here. So the authorizing official is going to make that determination. They are the person accountable for the risk determination. Now they may be working with a risk executive or the Office of Risk Management, but they're responsible. They have the responsibility to make this risk determination. So then we get that risk response of accept, avoid, mitigate, share. That gets documented. We never ignore risk, and change those factors, reduce or eliminate. May add to our plan of action and milestones. We may have additional tasks that need to be addressed. And we're going to look at, again, the likelihood and impact and the exposure factor that we have to a vulnerability or threat. And those are the risk factors we're going to look at. And then we make our authorization decision. We've seen here in a lot of cases this, again, the SDLC, one thing I didn't quite continue on is once we move out of assess, of develop and acquisition, see, all in assess, we're still develop and acquisition. When we move into authorize, now we're the implementation and assess phase, okay? Because we've implemented and we're assessing. So we've moved out of that. It's a little bit weird. We don't move into implementation in the implementation of our controls. We're implementing our system and going into production. That's why it's here within the SDLC. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Our authorization decision, so we have this AODR, which is a designated representative by the authorizing official, that generally works with the AO and can work on the AO's behalf throughout many of these phases. But when it comes to the actual authorization, since the authorizing official is the person that is accountable for the risk response and um, the risk treatment, the risk treatment determination, they are the only one that can make this authorizing decision. They are the person within the organization that has been delegated to do that. And so now they're making that decision. Now they may authorize it to operate. Um, Here's kind of those triggers, and so they're going to look at the system. They're going to say, okay, we're going to we accept, and everything that's addressed within this document is properly addressed within our systems and our um, organizational risk management strategy. So we're going to now say, okay, I'm authorizing this to operate, and that puts it into production. Now, there are some other areas here in terms of authorization to use. So maybe we've got some punch list items that we need to address, but we can go ahead and use it. It's not in full operations yet, but you can, same thing with common control authorization. So maybe some of the custom controls we need to address, but we can use the common controls. It may still hold up the system being authorized to operate. And then there's a denial aspect to all three of those as well. But denying means you haven't met the criteria. We're not going to take this risk on for the system. You need to go back to the select phase, select some new compensating controls, and then come back, get reassessed and come back to me. We get different triggers, event driven, traditional authorization, one organization, and joint authorization. If we got multiple multiple authorizing officials, could be key there. And then finally, the reporting is just really going into that. This goes into that system registry that system's been inventoried and it's now authorized to operate. Finally, the monitor section. We'll close out with this one. There's 7 phases and 7 tasks in this, with one being system disposal. Now, system disposal, we're talking about bringing a new system on, a new application. System disposal really is not going to come into play for quite a while. But as we monitor and continue to monitor the system, essentially the system is going to hit a disposal mode. So that's here, but it is not relevant to bringing a new system on. Obviously, we're going to continue monitoring the system probably for years to come. Again, a lot of this is redundant to the other tasks on a monitoring basis. So system and environment changes. This is our change management system. So we're now in operation and maintenance phase of the SDLC. And what we need to do in terms of any system environment changes, we need to go through really back through the selection, implement, and assessment and authorization phases at a higher level, but from a configuration management and change control aspect of things. We need to go through proper due diligence, due care in terms of understanding what the what the plan is, what the changes are, get those properly evaluated. Again, ongoing assessments. What are we doing to continuously monitor these systems and making sure that we're doing continuous levels of assessments, continuous risk response. Again, if something changes within our system, what's the risk? Do the risk analysis, do the risk response. Again, it's redundant to the other phases just within monitoring. Again, authorization package updates. So you can see here, like this system environment goes all the way back to kind of even maybe go back to categorize if new data is being introduced. We may then have new selection of controls, new implementation controls. Then it goes into new assessment of those controls, risk response, all the change control process to reauthorize that system if it's if it's a big enough control, if it's a big enough change in the environment. Same thing with, again, reporting. Last phase of that authorization stage, last task was reporting. Same thing here. We're going to continue to report, continue to understand and ongoing understanding of risks within our organization. Again, we're building a risk-aware culture. We're working with risk. We're tying that risk to our tasks and to our organization, and to our risk management strategy, to our policies, procedures, and how everybody handles risk within our organization. It could be, it could be within the, within the risk reports and all that ongoing authorization. Somebody reporting a risk, we may find a control is in place. We go back through this monitoring process. And then the system disposal, like I said, this is a disposal within the old existing systems. We, sanitizing, purging, clearing, purging, destroying. If it's physical equipment, cryptographic erasure. If we're in cloud environments or virtual environments, we don't want to destroy the destroy it. So we destroy the encryption keys, making it unreadable. And that is the risk management framework. So we go back and think about all of the phases. We start with prepare. There's 18 steps to prepare. First 7, P1 through P7, is organizational based. So we work on the risk management strategy, the organization's continuous monitoring strategy, what our risk tolerance levels are, all go into that. Our policies, procedures around handling risk. P8 through 18, with P8 being what is the mission and business process that this system is going to address from a business perspective. And then we can identify all the elements of that system, all the components and architecture of that system, what the system requirements are, all those things. Going to categorize, where we categorize the, we have a system description, then we have the asset categorization of that system. Then we can select our controls in the select step, which then builds our security and privacy plan. From our security and privacy plan, then we can implement our controls. And so we implement the controls, anything that we change in terms of tailoring controls or compensating controls or supplemental controls. We document that in our security and privacy plan. Essentially have then an as-built for controls that go into the assessment phase. The assessment phase, then we choose an assessor. The assessor takes the scope of the implementation of the security and privacy plans, evaluates the validity, verifies and validates those controls, gives an opportunity on some of the quick fixes to mitigate those controls before the final report's created. With the final report comes the plan of action and milestones for those longer fixes that need longer milestones and things like that. That then moves its way to authorization. We build an executive summary. We share the current updated security and privacy plans, the assessment documentation, and then any documentation, the plan of action and milestones, and any supporting documentation for the assessments, to go into authorized to operate. Once that's authorized to operate, we now go into maintenance and operations and maintenance, which now we are working towards our continuous monitoring strategy for the organization and the system, which includes any changes that we might have in our environment that go through a change management configuration control board to evaluate the risk, assess the risks, determine the risk response, authorize the change, and put that change in place. And that is the risk management framework as defined by NIST. And that brings us to the end of today's Cyber Foundation Friday topic. As I said, I have these scheduled for 2 hours. We're going to go probably hour to 90 to 1 or 20 minutes, depending on the topic. So we're finishing up a little bit early today. Again, if you're tuning in and have any questions, please put them in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer them. Again, Join us next week. We're going to talk about the key concepts around AI security and ethics and responsible AI and things like that. And again, feel free to join one of these courses. Again, Risk Management Foundations is just coming up in about in a little less than 2 weeks. It's a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern time. So again, if you're joining from EMEA, that's going to be in your afternoon. United States is going to be in your morning. It's going to be in the evening for many of you, maybe in APAC, but hopefully you can attend. Again, the foundations courses I'm offering at $250 a seat. With the vouchers, $300 a seat for the practitioner courses. That's why the two numbers are there. So again, reach out to me if you're interested in one of those courses. You can catch up with me on LinkedIn as well as X. Follow Captain Hyperscaler's LinkedIn page, as well as the YouTube channel. And I'm going to go to captainhyperscaler.com, and you can, right in the featured section are these actual courses, and you can actually right from there, register for those courses, and then I will send out the Teams link to everybody interested in the actual course once payment's received. But other than that, thanks. Oops, did something wrong here. Hit the wrong button. And thanks to everybody for joining today. Again, I've got time here, and I'll stick around if you have any questions. Feel free to post them in the chat. I'll leave these trainings up here as well. But you can go, again, captainhyperscaler.com, and all of these trainings are in our training catalog, in our calendar as well, as well as the Foundation Fridays are in there also, so you can find what topic is each day. Another thing as well, if you're interested in something a little bit more technical and a little bit more, a little bit more detailed than these Accolade courses, which are quick. They're good origin stories to start with. But if you're looking at more of a hero saga, I will be offering an Osaka C-Risk course, which is the certified in risk and compliance, in December. That is also on the training calendar. So you can certainly register and join that as well. A little bit higher cost to that one, but you can reach out to me, and I can, if you've got a group that wants to come in, I can offer some special group rates. But that, like I said, that's a 4-day course, so there's a little bit more cost to it, 4 full days, not 3 little 3-hour sessions like this. But you're going to get a lot of information in these 3-hour sessions here when we get into each of these courses. And the exams, I'll tell you, I took the betas for both the risk management courses and plan on taking the security beta within the next probably week and a half. I can tell you that I'm that Accolade does an amazing job on their exams, and on their certifications are actually going through the due diligence of getting proper ISO requirements and getting onto the DoD's 8140 list for the DoD roles. So that puts them right up there with ISC2 and Osaka and EC Council trainings, and GD IAC as well. Those are very well recognized if you are using those, if you're using those as certifications to build your portfolio and build your ability to to talk about certain topics around cyber resilience and risk management and everything like that. These courses are very helpful to, again, start your origin story around cybersecurity, risk management, and AI security. So I'm not seeing any questions coming up. I want to thank everybody for attending today. And again, keep in mind we do these courses we're doing these little quick hour and a half sessions every Friday, different times on different days. So definitely follow the Captain Hyperscaler YouTube channel or the LinkedIn page for Captain Hyperscaler, so that you know when this is. And you can, if you're using LinkedIn, go to the events. You can register for the event, and it'll put it in your calendar as well. So I recommend you do that. And other than that, I want to thank everybody for joining today, as I help you hopefully skill up like a superhero with these little Foundation Fridays, and we'll continue these on and continue talking about this. Another thing I wanted to mention too is, and I'll put this up here in a caption also, is starting next week on October 1st is a special event. And if anybody follows me, you are familiar with my Azure Back to School event. But what we're offering starting next week and what's going to happen is Cyber Back to School. So many of you may know that October is considered Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So as part of the Cybersecurity Awareness Month, I'm doing an event. We're doing sessions every day, like recorded sessions. I'm doing some podcasts, doing these sessions as part of it as well, kind of aligning doing these as part of Cybersecurity Awareness Month. As well as doing these beta classes for accolades, beta certifications, all fall into the same realm. So I welcome you to go to Cyber Back to School. There's a session I schedule on there, and tune into the daily events that are going to be a part of that as well. So lots going on here with Captain Hyperscaler and myself here over the course of September and October and November. And I want to welcome you along for the journey. So thank you all. And again, have a great day. Appreciate you joining us. Or if you're watching this online afterwards, thank you for tuning in. And again, feel free to reach out if you have any questions or anything around any of this information that I'm putting out here, or anything regarding the upcoming courses or cyber back to school or any of the events accordingly. Or just if you have any questions around certifications, feel free to reach out. Happy to help you. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest.